The grand execution chamber of the Galactic Council was a monument to power, a cathedral of dominion carved from the near-indestructible remnants of a collapsed neutron star. Its vast, shimmering expanse was anchored by 3 artificial gravity wells, their presence felt as an oppressive force that weighed down even the most resilient delegates. The chamber's walls shimmered faintly with starlight, a reminder of the billions of lives their decisions affected across the galaxy. Today, the chamber thrummed with more than its usual gravitas. Representatives from over 200 species gathered, their diverse forms creating a surreal tapestry. The mist walkers of Nebula 7 hovered near the vaulted ceilings, their gaseous forms shifting in restless shades of violet and green. The Petra Collective, silicon-based beings, refracted the chamber's light into hypnotic rainbows. Even the enigmatic quantum swimmers, beings who existed across dimensions, had sent an observer, though their presence was an ungraspable haze of shifting probability. At the center of it all stood High Executor Irar, a creature of the 7th quadrant, whose spindly limbs gestured with precise authority. Irar's dual-voice sax pulsed, their harmonics commanding attention. This was no ordinary sentencing. This was history in the making. Fellow members of the esteemed council, Irar began, his words carrying a resonance that reverberated through the chamber. Today, we assert our unchallenged supremacy. Bring forth the specimen. A collective murmur rippled through the chamber as the containment field activated. The air hummed with barely restrained energy, and from the core of the force barriers emerged the human prisoner. Captain Alexandra Mason, once the proud commander of the Earth starship Star Wanderer. Suspended in a web of gravitic restraints, her form appeared fragile, yet her presence commanded the room. The council's alien dignitaries leaned forward, their sensory organs twitching. The Grand Sovereign YCK Troll, an imposing reptilian figure, hissed derisively, his scales shimmering in angry hues of red. So limited, so fragile. Binary gender, sequential time perception. How does such a species dare to challenge us? The room erupted in agreement, clicks, chirps, flashes, and chemical pheromones of accord. Humans were an anomaly, an evolutionary quirk undeserving of galactic recognition. But Alexandra Mason's lips quirked into a smile. It wasn't the timid, defeated expression of a prisoner. It was the smile of someone who knew something they did not. You stand accused, Irar declared, of crimes against the natural order. Your species' reckless existence threatens the delicate balance we have cultivated for millennia. Alexandra tilted her head, her auburn hair gleaming under the artificial lighting. Her voice, surprisingly steady, echoed in the chamber. You talk about balance, but all I see is fear. You're terrified of us, aren't you? A stunned silence followed her words. No condemned being had ever dared to speak so boldly in the execution chamber. Begin the extraction sequence. Irar roared, his third appendage slashing the air in a gesture of rage. From the chamber's hidden recesses, sleek probes extended toward Alexandra. Designed for surgical precision, they would extract her neural patterns, her pain signals, and finally, her life force, broadcasting every agonizing moment for the council's satisfaction. As the probes closed in, Alexandra's strange smile only widened. You still don't get it, do you? She said, her voice calm, almost amused. You've made a terrible mistake. For a brief moment, the chamber's ambient light flickered. The quantum swimmer's observer pulsed with alarm, emitting bursts of incomprehensible warnings. Across the chamber, readings spiked, registering anomalies that none of the assembled scientists could explain. She's a biological anomaly, Chief Scientist Miraval whispered, her tendrils moving frantically across a control panel. Her neural pathways are adapting to the procedure. Impossible. Irar snapped. Increase the intensity. The probes hummed louder, their energy fields crackling as they penetrated Alexandra's defenses. Her body tensed, her breathing quickened, yet she refused to beg or scream. Instead, she laughed, a deep, resonant sound that chilled the chamber to its core. Do you know what humans say? She asked, her voice carrying effortlessly over the cacophony of instruments. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But no one ever asked, What if what kills us makes us invincible? The chamber's temperature plummeted. Frost began to form on the neutron star walls, an impossible phenomenon. The mist walkers condensed into dense, immobile clouds. The Petra collective ceased their harmonic resonance, their crystal forms dimming in fear. Warning! Miraval shouted, her voice shrill. Temporal distortions detected. Shut it down. Security Commander Dorn bellowed, his gravitational amplifiers stomping the floor. This isn't natural. But the containment field surged with uncontrollable energy, bathing Alexandra in blinding light. Her body convulsed, her veins glowing with molten gold. The probes sparked and exploded, their fragments scattering across the floor. Her vital signs are flatlining, Miraval screamed. Good, Irar muttered. Death was inevitable. But Alexandra didn't die. Her lifeless body hovered, radiant and still. Then, to the horror of all present, it began to move. Her chest rose and fell in a ragged breath. Her skin cracked, and from the fissures, a luminous, golden light poured forth. Impossible! Irar shrieked, backing away. She's regenerating. Alexandra's eyes snapped open, blazing with an intensity that seared into the minds of all who looked at her. The chamber trembled as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling. You wanted to understand us, she said, her voice now layered with an otherworldly resonance. You wanted to extract our essence. Congratulations, you succeeded. The chamber descended into chaos. Delegates scrambled, their forms shifting in terror. Irar bellowed orders to evacuate, but the chamber's exits sealed themselves with an invisible force. You thought death was the ultimate end, Alexandra continued, her voice echoing across dimensions. For humans, it's a door you just helped me open. Her body transformed, her once fragile form expanding into something unrecognizable. Golden wings of pure energy unfurled, stretching across light years, yet remaining confined within the chamber. Her skin shimmered with starlight, and her laughter resonated in frequencies that shattered instruments. The quantum swimmers phased in and out of existence, their attempts to escape thwarted as Alexandra yanked them back into reality. The Petra collective fractured, their crystalline bodies resonating with despair. Do you see now? Alexandra said, her voice soft yet carrying a weight that silenced the chaos. You thought humanity was weak because we suffer, but suffering is what makes us strong. Every challenge, every defeat, every death, we grow from it. The Grand Execution Chamber was no longer a seat of power. It had become a crucible of chaos. The containment field crackled and dissolved into ribbons of energy that orbited Alexandra like planetary rings. Delegates writhed, many attempting to flee despite the sealed exits. The once unassailable Galactic Council had been reduced to a terrified mob. I gave you a chance, Alexandra said, her voice carrying across the multidimensional hum of the chamber. Her golden wings unfurled further, their tips dissolving into streaks of light that bent the laws of physics. My people came to you in peace. You answered with chains. Irar, now visibly trembling, pointed a spindly appendage at her. This is an abomination. You defy the natural order. Natural order? Alexandra's laugh was a symphony of contempt and power. You don't even understand the order you claim to enforce. You've spent millennia conquering, subjugating, and destroying, calling it balance. But you forgot one simple truth. Balance is dynamic. Life evolves. Her words carried a physical force. Delegates staggered as the chamber itself seemed to pulse in response. The Petra collective shattered, their fragments rising into the air and reassembling as radiant crystalline birds that began to sing in haunting harmonies. The mist walkers, once amorphous clouds, condensed into humanoid forms, their gaseous limbs clutching one another in terror. The quantum swimmers vibrated violently, emitting bursts of incomprehensible energy. Their dimensional forms warped as they attempted to phase out of existence entirely. Alexandra's eyes flared, and they were yanked back into three-dimensional space, their shimmering forms collapsing into small, pulsating spheres. You don't get to run, Alexandra said coldly. You wanted to know what makes humanity different? You wanted to dissect us, to claim you understood us? Then stay. Watch. Learn. Security Commander Dorn activated the emergency defense grid, unleashing an arsenal of energy weapons hidden within the chamber. Beams of concentrated plasma, antimatter torpedoes, and gravitic distorters all converged on Alexandra in a synchronized assault. The weapons stopped midair. The energy beams writhed, twisting into glowing ribbons that circled Alexandra's form before dissipating into harmless motes of light. The torpedoes disassembled, their components rearranging themselves into floating sculptures of earth animals, wolves, eagles, and dolphins, etched in shimmering antimatter. "Cute," Alexandra remarked, her tone dripping with sarcasm. She flicked her hand, and the sculptures exploded into bursts of radiant stardust that spread through the chamber. Delegates who inhaled the particles convulsed briefly before collapsing, their forms temporarily flickering with an unfamiliar golden glow. Chief Scientist Miraval clung desperately to her console, her tendrils flying across the interface. "High Executor, her energy output is exceeding neutron star levels. She's rewriting the quantum substrate. This isn't possible." "Shut it down," Irar bellowed, his primary voice sack quivering with desperation. "Whatever it takes, shut it down." Miraval hesitated. "If we shut down the chamber's energy systems, the gravity wells will destabilize. The entire station will collapse into a singularity." "Do it," Irar screeched. "Better annihilation than this." Before Mira could comply, Alexandra turned her gaze on her. "You've spent your life studying how to tear other beings apart. Now, let's see if you can understand how to put them back together." The console dissolved into a liquid cascade of light, flowing toward Alexandra and merging with her expanding aura. Miraval was lifted into the air, her tendrils flailing as her crystalline eyes glowed with a strange intensity. Her body contorted, her silicon-based structure shifting into organic patterns. When she fell to the ground, she was no longer the same. Her silicon form now pulsed with faint organic rhythms, a hybrid of her species and something new. "What have you done to me?" Mira whispered, her voice trembling with equal parts fear and awe. "I gave you a taste of what it means to change," Alexandra said, her tone almost gentle. "Consider it a gift." The chamber shuddered as the artificial gravity wells began to collapse under the strain of Alexandra's energy. The Grand Sovereign YCK troll lunged forward, his shimmering scales now dark with panic. "You are a monster," he snarled. "Your kind will destroy the galaxy." "Destroy it?" Alexandra asked, floating closer. Her form was now a shifting constellation, her golden light bending time and space around her. "No, humanity isn't here to destroy. We're here to rebuild. You fear us because we're everything you're not. Resilient, adaptable, and yes, flawed. But those flaws make us unstoppable." She extended a hand, and YCK troll scales began to shift, their colors becoming reflective, their once armored surface softening into a pliable texture. He collapsed to the ground, his mighty form now vulnerable, his once imposing presence reduced to a trembling shadow of itself. "You think power is the ability to dominate," Alexandra said, her voice echoing like a symphony across the collapsing chamber. "Real power is the ability to transform. And I've had enough of your stagnant empire." As the chamber reached critical instability, Alexandra raised her arms, her radiant form absorbing the gravitational anomalies. The chamber began to reconstruct itself, its neutron star walls shifting into transparent crystal that revealed the vast galactic expanse beyond. Delegates who had collapsed began to rise, their forms altered. The Petra Collective shimmered with new, vibrant hues. The Mist Walkers took on defined forms, their gaseous bodies now tangible and radiant. Even the quantum swimmers stabilized, their dimensional fluctuations calming into harmonious patterns. "You've all been given a second chance," Alexandra said, her voice now softer but no less commanding. "The civilizations you've destroyed will be restored. The knowledge you've hoarded will be shared. And you, the Council, will serve them, not as rulers, but as stewards." The chamber dissolved into light, and the delegates found themselves standing on the surface of a newly reconstructed planet. Around them, the ruins of once destroyed civilizations were rebuilding themselves, guided by tendrils of golden energy. Alexandra hovered above them, her golden wings stretching across the sky. This is your legacy now. Use it wisely. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. What was once a rigid empire of domination and control had become a sprawling network of creativity and cooperation, guided by the steady, unrelenting presence of Alexandra Mason. On the surface of the reconstituted planet now called Concordia, the former Galactic Council had gathered for their first performance. The audience comprised billions of beings, representatives of every species the Council had once subjugated. The air hummed with anticipation, a mix of curiosity and latent hostility. The audience didn't come to be entertained. They came to witness their former oppressors humbled. Behind the shimmering curtain of Concordia's open-air amphitheater, Irar adjusted his costume nervously. The High Executor, once feared across the galaxy, now found himself playing the part of a bumbling bureaucrat in a human historical drama. His four appendages quivered with embarrassment. "This is absurd," he muttered to Miraval, now the stage director. "We were rulers. Now we are clowns." Mira, her hybrid form glowing faintly with organic light, tilted her head thoughtfully. "Perhaps it's better this way," she said, her tentacles deftly arranging props. What did Alexandra say? Redemption is found in humility. Irar growled under his breath but didn't argue. He had learned, over the centuries, that defiance brought only more creative punishments from Alexandra, punishments that often doubled as life lessons. As the curtains parted, the former counselors stepped into the spotlight, their bodies adorned with costumes that shimmered with light. The play was a human classic, A Midsummer Night's Dream, chosen by Alexandra herself for its themes of transformation and reconciliation. The performance began shakily, the counselors stumbling over their lines and tripping over their unfamiliar appendages. Laughter rippled through the audience. But it wasn't cruel. It was genuine, the kind of laughter that bridged the gap between predator and prey, oppressor and oppressed. By the second act, something remarkable happened. The counselors began to lose themselves in their roles. YCK Troll, the once imposing Grand Sovereign, delivered a surprisingly heartfelt monologue as Oberon, his metallic scales catching the starlight. The Mistwalkers, their forms now solidified into ephemeral beauty, danced gracefully across the stage as fairy attendants. Even the quantum swimmers, confined to 3 dimensions, managed to infuse their movements with an ethereal elegance. In the final scene, as the lovers reconciled and the magical chaos subsided, the audience rose in a standing ovation. Cheers and resonant harmonics filled the air. The galaxy had not only forgiven the council, it had embraced them as artists. Above the amphitheater, Alexandra hovered in her constellation-like form, her golden wings folding and unfolding lazily as she observed the performance. She had seen this transformation coming, but the depth of it still filled her with something akin to pride. The galaxy was healing. Species that had once been mortal enemies now collaborated on vast interstellar projects. Former slave worlds had become cultural hubs, their inhabitants sharing art, music, and stories that enriched the galaxy's collective consciousness. Alexandra's voice echoed softly across the cosmos, a gentle reminder of her presence. "You've done well," she said to the former council, her tone carrying a warmth they hadn't expected. "This is the harmony I always knew was possible." Yet, not all was peaceful. In the farthest reaches of the galaxy, remnants of the old empire festered, their leaders plotting to reclaim their lost power. These factions whispered of Alexandra as a demon, a false god who had enslaved the council and twisted the natural order. One such faction, the Red Expanse, had spent centuries constructing a weapon, a chronodisruptor, designed to undo the moment of Alexandra's resurrection by collapsing the timeline around Concordia. Word of the weapon reached Alexandra through the quantum swimmers, whose multidimensional senses detected the anomaly. She convened the council in the central chamber of Concordia, a crystalline dome that reflected the stars. "We have a problem," Alexandra said, her form shimmering with urgency. "The Red Expanse seeks to rewrite history. They plan to erase this harmony by erasing me. The council reacted with alarm. But if they succeed, YCK Troll said, his metallic form rippling with agitation, everything we've built will be undone. Not necessarily, Alexandra replied. I've been preparing for this. She revealed a plan, one that involved a daring infiltration of the Red Expanse's stronghold. The council would play the ultimate role, performing a story of peace and reconciliation, so compelling that it would fracture the Red Expanse from within. The mission was dangerous. The Red Expanse's fortress was a massive construct orbiting a dying star, its defenses nearly impenetrable. Yet the council, now bonded by their shared purpose, embarked on the journey with Alexandra as their guide. The final act played out within the heart of the fortress. The council performed a story drawn from Earth's history, a retelling of the moment when humanity first reached for the stars and found unity through struggle. The audience wasn't the forgiving masses of the galaxy. It was the hardened militants of the Red Expanse, their hatred of Alexandra palpable. Yet as the story unfolded, something shifted. The militants saw themselves in the tale, their rigid ideologies crumbling under the weight of shared emotion. At the climax of the performance, Alexandra herself stepped into the spotlight. Her golden form radiated a warmth that melted the cold steel of the fortress. You sought to erase me, she said, her voice filled with both sorrow and hope. But I am not an individual. I am an idea, a reminder that unity is always possible. The chronodisruptor was dismantled, its energy repurposed to reignite the dying star. The Red Expanse disbanded, its members scattering across the galaxy to contribute to the new order. As for Alexandra, she retreated into the fabric of the cosmos, her presence now felt only in the harmony of the stars. The council continued their performances, not out of obligation, but out of love for the stories they told and the connections they forged. The galaxy had been reshaped, not through conquest, but through creativity, and at its heart was the enduring legacy of humanity. The ability to turn suffering into strength, enemies into allies, and chaos into art. The curtain rises, the show goes on, and the galaxy, forever changed, watches in awe. Concordia became a beacon of hope. Where once it had been a symbol of subjugation, it now stood as the heart of a galaxy-wide movement. Delegations from countless worlds flocked to its crystalline amphitheater, eager to witness the performances that had become the new lingua franca of unity. Every play, every story told by the former Galactic Council, resonated deeply, weaving a tapestry of shared understanding among species once divided by war and oppression. Yet, even as the galaxy healed, Alexandra's radiant form cast long shadows. Whispers of doubt and fear lingered. Could such peace last? And what role would humanity play in this ever-changing order? The remnants of the old empire did not fade into obscurity quietly. Among the ruins of their former glory, pockets of resistance gathered strength. They viewed Alexandra not as a savior, but as a tyrant cloaked in benevolence. Chief among these dissenters was Cryon Var, a former admiral of the Empire's fleet and now the self-proclaimed leader of the Coalition of True Balance. We cannot allow ourselves to be governed by the whims of a single entity, Cryon declared in a broadcast that rippled through the galaxy. His holographic image flickered on screens across countless worlds. The galaxy must return to the natural order, one forged through strength and discipline, not this artistic chaos. The coalition's numbers swelled, their rhetoric appealing to those who had lost status or power under Alexandra's reign. Cryon's flagship, the Aegis Eternal, became a rallying point, its weapon systems bristling with the technological might of the old empire. Alexandra was well aware of the coalition's growing influence. From her vantage point within the fabric of the galaxy, she observed their movements with an almost maternal concern. They don't understand, she mused to the council during a rare physical manifestation. They cling to the past because they fear the unknown. It's time to show them the beauty of what lies ahead. She proposed an audacious plan. Instead of meeting the coalition's aggression with force, they would stage a universal broadcast, a performance so powerful it would reach every corner of the galaxy. The story would depict not only humanity's resilience, but the collective strength of all species when united. The council hesitated. And if they attacked during the broadcast? YCK Troll asked, his metallic scales rippling with unease. They will, Alexandra replied, her voice carrying the certainty of one who had seen countless possibilities. But this is the only way to reach them. Fear cannot be conquered with fear. It must be dissolved by understanding. The preparations for the broadcast were monumental. Using the combined technologies of the galaxy's most advanced species, the amphitheater on Concordia was transformed into a planetary projection hub, capable of transmitting not just images and sound, but emotions, thoughts, and sensory experiences directly into the minds of the audience. The story, written by Alexandra herself, was titled The Symphony of All Life. It was a sweeping epic that spanned eons, chronicling the rise and fall of civilizations, the pain of loss, and the triumph of unity. Every species had a role, their contributions woven into the narrative. On the eve of the performance, the amphitheater thrummed with anticipation. The council took their places on stage, their forms glowing faintly under the crystalline lights. Alexandra hovered above them, her golden wings folded like a protective canopy. As predicted, the coalition launched their attack during the climactic act of the performance. The Aegis Eternal and its fleet emerged from hyperspace, their weapons primed to reduce Concordia to rubble. Cryon Var's voice crackled through the amphitheater's comm systems. "This ends now," he bellowed. "The galaxy will not bow to a single species' delusions of grandeur." But Alexandra did not react with anger or fear. Instead, she extended her glowing hands, her golden aura enveloping the amphitheater and projecting the performance directly into the minds of the attacking fleet. Cryon Var faltered. On the bridge of the Aegis Eternal, he saw images that pierced his carefully constructed armor of hatred. He saw the anguish of species eradicated by the empire he once served. He saw the laughter of children from worlds he had never known, their joy mingling with the sorrow of their ancestors. He saw humanity's first tentative steps into the stars, guided not by conquest, but by curiosity. And he saw himself, not as a warrior, but as a father, a teacher, a being capable of creating rather than destroying. The coalition's fleet hesitated. One by one, their weapons fell silent, their ships drifting closer to Concordia. Cryon Var, trembling with the weight of what he had seen, activated a fleet-wide transmission. "I was wrong," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. "I thought strength was the only path, but strength means nothing without purpose. And our purpose must be to preserve, not to destroy." The broadcast ended with a crescendo of light and sound, the final notes of the symphony resonating across the galaxy. As the last echoes faded, Alexandra's form dimmed, her golden wings folding as she descended to the stage. "The galaxy doesn't need rulers," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "It needs storytellers, creators, and dreamers. It needs all of you." In the centuries that followed, the galaxy flourished in ways unimaginable during the Empire's reign. The coalition dissolved, its members integrating into the new order as artists, engineers, and diplomats. Cryon Var became one of the galaxy's most celebrated playwrights, his works exploring themes of redemption and unity. The former Galactic Council continued their performances, now joined by representatives from every species. Their plays became the shared history of the galaxy, a living archive that grew richer with each passing year. As for Alexandra, she became less a figure of authority and more a guiding presence, her influence felt in the gentle harmonies of the universe itself. When asked why she had spared those who sought to destroy her, she replied simply, "Because even the darkest hearts can learn to shine." The curtain falls, the galaxy breathes, and the story continues, written by countless hands, each one a testament to the resilience and creativity of life itself.